Hello, welcome to NGL, another video. We got on the bench today is a Carlsbro CS60 PA. This is a British made amp and it was made in a place called Kirkby in Ashfield in Nottinghamshire, which is actually where I lived as a child up until my late teens. This amp was made late 60s, 68, 69 maybe, and these were very good amps, very well made. Drake transformers, one of them, what they had in the Marshalls. This one's got some issues though, given its age. I don't know whether this has ever been serviced or before or whatever. We'll know when we take the back off. So let's have a look at some of the controls and things that we've got then. It's a strange bit of a layout. So we've got main volume there, presence, middle and bass, but no treble. This particular model's got a reverb as well, so you've got this, got a reverb there and a foot switch to control it, and then you've got 4 channels there for the microphones or whatever you're putting through it. These amps are actually, the preamp stages are grid biased on these, I think, if I remember. Certainly the earlier ones were, so I think these are the very first ones were. I presume these ones are, but they are a very good amp. They produce quite a lot of these. There's still quite a few around, and they're quite easy to turn into guitar amps as well, and they do make cracking guitar amps. So let's have a look at the back. So you can see if we go in there, looking at the back, you can see the Carlsbro sound equipment logo there, manufactured in England. Got impedance selector there, very basic layout on that. There's the model number there, and then you've got your main selector there, which is that, which corresponds to that, and the old bulging socket there still on it, the old bulging, which of course they all had on in those days. So let's whip the back door off and have a look and see what we've got inside. So there's a bit of mould on the back door there, you can see that it's caught, so it's caught a bit of damp somewhere. Let's have a look what we've got. So we'll just put that up there, back door. So these are so we've got these preamp valves, the 12X7s. I'm not sure what brand they are. They look like they've been changed at some point. So look at this phase inverter one. Just get that, sorry. Yes, pink. Pink's here again, of course we're filming as always, and whenever we're filming, pink's there. So yeah, so you can see that. Not sure what make they are, but, and then the output valves are EL34s, and there, that one's there. You can see that's an Edison, that one. They look odd to me, because if you look at the bases there, you can see they're odd. I would pretty much guess that this one looks, sorry, camera's all over the place, sorry about that. I'm pretty much sure that this one, if we can get it out, it's very stiff. I just switched the camera off a minute. Yeah, we've got him out there. He don't seem to have a logo on him, so we don't know what that one is. So if we look inside, we can see the lay down transformer there, and we've got quite a sizable choke in there, and then there's the output transformer, and we can see there has been a bit of damp in here, and you can see, if you look around this socket there, you see the rust and things. So you can see this, and then on the choke as well, look there, we're going, get too close with this camera, but yeah, so, and there's rust on the laminates there, so it has caught a bit of damp at some time, this one. You can see if we hone in there on the back, you can see the reverb tank there going across the front on there. You see that on there, that's the reverb, and again he's a shade rusty as well. So we're going to have to take this out of its cabinet and have a look underneath. Now I've run this amp up briefly and it's very sick. It's hardly got any volume and it's extremely distorted. So we've got some serious issues. Right, so we've opened it up. So these are still the original capacitors in here, these Hunt's ones, what they always have in them. And they're just having a look. I can't see any, can't see them spitting any electrolyte, which they normally do, but they don't look great. And this old board is here, you can see is blackened. You see there, so that's some real heat. This resistor here that they use is something to do with the reverb circuit, I think. Can't remember for sure, but that's terribly dry jointed. You can see there, if we go, I don't know how close we can get in, but if, yeah, focusing failed, it says on the camera. So if you look at that, you can see that's pretty bad. Someone's changed this resistor here to alter the bias at some time. I believe that's 180k on the schematic, that's 150k. So someone's had a go at that, and it's also been badly soldered in as well. Very cold solder joint on there. And again, all around here as well, you can see there's some real issues there. Very carbon on there. So that's yeah, there we go. The lock's being rattled again. Yes, come in pink, why don't you? So yeah, so there's some issues there, and of course all that carbon on that board there is not good. Really, we don't want that. It's we don't want this board being conductive because of that, and it's pretty coated that end. So as we move down, we could see most of this is original. There's a crumbling capacitor there, that looks very sick. There. What else we got? And then on here, someone has added some kind of, I'm not quite sure what that is. Some kind of, it's like some kind of attenuator thing with it there with the pot on there. That's a very strange item. Not quite seen anything. That's certainly not original, I can tell you. I've opened up enough of these to know. So 100k grid stoppers here, and notice how these grid stoppers are coming onto the way they wired off the volume there instead of off the jack socket. So I'm reckoning this is grid biased again, this amp, like most of the others, the way they're wired. So yes, that's all looking a little bit sticky out. That if we go back to this end, that bias diode there for the bias, that looks like that's had a right baking at some point, and all of this, something's either exploded in here or whatever at some point let go because of the amount of carbon that there is on there. This amp is very sick, and looking at that, what's gone off there, there's no wonder. The grid resistors, the screen resistors have been changed at some time. There, if we look in there, we can see they've been there. Probably need to turn it round. Let's just turn it round. So if we just look, there we can see it, an absolutely dreadful solder joint there on that one as well, cold solder. That left there, you can see that been pushed through, left overlapped, and it's almost touching that pin there on on, I don't know what pin that is, but I think that's a screen, I'm not sure. Yes, that's a grid stopper on the output, yeah, so that's almost touching, screen's almost touching the control grid, but that's not far off on there. These have been taken out, the board's been out at some time, and Mr. Laycross has been in here, just laid those across, not put them back in the eyelets. Usual thing you see, someone's been in. So yeah, these transistors here, I think there's something to do with the reverb. I don't know what makes me think that big resistor is something to do with the reverb. I've not worked on many of these with reverb on, or if any, I can't remember, but something in the back of my mind. I'll have to look at the schematic and see if I can remember. But yeah, pretty sick really. Just looking now, we're looking at this capacitor here. Amazingly enough, none of these are leaking. That one may have just started leaking. I think there is electrolyte coming out of that one. There, just beginning to start to leak. But these look, see there, I can't see any leakage on those, but they are really old. These caps have been in here over 50 years. It's a long time. But these are great amps when they're working. And of course they've got the old mustard caps in, which if you watch that Selma video that I did, the series of videos for the Selma PA we converted to a guitar amp, we can remember that these are absolutely spot on. Very rare we find any of those leaking ever, or the values have drifted either. They're fantastic caps. So they'll probably be alright, but I mean, you never know for sure, so we'll test those as well, see if there's any leakage anywhere. But yes, so there's a few things need addressing, irrespective to repair that bias, that drop-in resistor there. What that does is that drops, that's off one of the sides of the AC on the mains power transformer. What that does, that drops the voltage down, and then this diode rectifies it to DC, but of course that's negative bias, so that diode is the opposite way around than what you'd have in the power supply, because we need negative volts for the grids on the output tubes. So that's what that's doing, and somebody's obviously reduced that to get more allow more voltage through there. So that needs, and it's code soldered as well, so that's very poor. This resistor, this capacitor here, I do believe, is the smoothing cap for the bias. So that needs a coat of looking at as well. So this amp does give you the impression that the bias is very cold, but it could be it could be a number of things. That's just one of the symptoms it could be. I'll be surprised if one of these is blown on the screen resistors, so I'll be very surprised, but they need doing properly. That's code soldered there, and that one, as I say, they've bent the pin round, it's almost touching the control grid. So we best delve into it and see if we can find out what's wrong. This amp really does need a full recap, it really does, but we shall have a look and find out. We'll also find out what this item is. Again, very badly soldered by the look of some of that. We'll have a look at what that is. Right, we're back with this Carlsbro CS60 PA that we've been working on. So I've removed the main electrolytics, and we can see in a bit more detail on this board some of the damage from that, if you remember, that large resistor that's actually feeding the reverb. At some point this amp's had a fault on it. It's got no HT fuse, and it obviously has so much current current draw just went up with the fault, and it's obviously blown that resistor, obviously burst into flames by the look of it at some point. And all the carbon is all over the board, and even some's gone onto the chassis there. These diodes are covered in it, in carbon as well. So whoever's replaced that resistor just didn't bother to clean this board up, which is not great because carbon's conductive and the board is absolutely caked in it all around these terminals as well. Someone's had this board out at some point, they've taken it out, and I'm going to have to take this board out because with that amount of carbon going on there, I need to see what's going on underneath this board as well to make sure it's safe. But whoever's had this board out has laid the wires across the top of the eyelets, and you can see that there, and that one's just, well, in fact that'll probably almost come off. So all, hang on a minute, just open the door, guess who's coming? Yes, if you hear the bolt rattling, we know it's Pink. So yeah, so all these have been laid on top virtually, and down this side as well, so whoever's been in here. So Mr. Laycross has been in here again, and you can see there, just looking there, that's shocking. So a visit from Mr. Laycross, I'm afraid, again has made, well, it's probably not made me extra work because I've really got to take the board out anyway, and this I've just removed that. There's some extremely botch work there and some more botch work there. So yes, so we need to clean this board up and sort it out. So we're going to have some new diodes in it, some quite the ones I use, they're rated at 3 watts and 1000 volts, so we're not having any trouble with those once they're in. And we're going to get this board cleaned up, and we are going to clean all these eyelets so they're solderable again. And you can see I've just done one there, we just honed in, and that's what I want all the eyelets to look like. I did that really just to so I can have a good look at the eyelets and see what condition they're in. And the very small eyelets on these boards. Now that big resistor that was in there, which was going from there to there, has got so hot, and is still continuing to get hot. It's kind of, the leads on it are like soldering iron, they just melt the solder, and it's all coming loose and stuff. So that resistor drops from 460 volts down to 20 volts. So that resistor's got a 440 volt drop on it, and I'll work that out to be just over 8 watts. That resistor should be, but that one is obviously 10 that are in there, and it is red hot and it's just baking the solder. So I've come up with a bit of an idea, and is to get around that. I can't understand why they're feeding that from there. There must be a reason for it, feeding that from from node 1 and dropping that right down to 20 volts. We've got an array of transistors there these are for the reverb. Why not feed off further down the line? Is that because it'll cause interference? I don't know. I can't say. It's not something you come across very often, reverb done in such a way. So what I propose is to have a 50 watt chassis mount resistor on here, and I did have that somewhere kicking around. Have you got it, Pink? I don't know where that's gone, but I ordered one. So basically what we'll do is we'll clean this here, and then we'll get some heatsink paste and we'll bolt that resistor down onto there and connect it up here, and that will then put that there, and hopefully then it'll remove that resistor from this board, because the last thing we need is that on there generating massive amount of heat, and there's always that risk of it letting go again like that one has. We need to put an HT fuse in this amp as well. You can't have an amp this, why they never put them in I don't know, but you can't have an amp this size and not have an HT fuse. And you can see the results of not having an HT fuse, and somebody's very kindly left us all that mess. So we're going to clear that up. So that's the next job, cleaning all that up, and then we'll get the board out and have a look, and then we'll get these new capacitors fitted. So I've just lifted this board up, this capacitor up, this chap here, and you can really see this carbon. You can see it on that capacitor there as well. It's been a massive implosion, madam, in there. This is taking a bit of getting off, so we're going to have to find something a bit more substantial to remove that. What I'm using at the minute isn't touching it, so I've cleaned the rust off of these as well so far, and I've cleaned all these eyelets out, ready for, just need a buffering with the so I've got a little fit in it that I put in the Dremel, and just very slowly, at a slow speed, just run it into those eyelets and clean them up so the solder will take to them. So yeah, you can see it's quite a mess. This cable going across here, which feeds the screens, is caped in carbon, and is also very brittle, so I think we might have to be changing that as well. I think that's the screen feed, because that goes from there, so we need to change that too, I think. So it's looking like a major revamp of this power supply. Right, we've been having a go at this board. I'm going to take drastic measures, I'm afraid. So we've tried alcohol, and we've tried some white spirit on it, which got some of it off. We finished up, I've had to sand it off. It's baked on. We can't leave it because we can't have carbon on the board. It's conductive, and we could have problems with it tracking over to these various eyelet points, so we can't risk that. So that's what I've had to do. It don't look pretty, but at least it's safe now. So I've got that done, cleaned up the eyelets. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to start them. I'm going to build this, put these caps on and everything, get in place, and then I'm going to take the board out and just look underneath and make sure they're properly soldered underneath as well. So we're all good to go with that. Right, started getting a few components in there. So we've I've got the caps, they're not soldered in yet, but they're in place, and I've got the diodes, the new diodes in there. Just soldered that one before I put that cap in, because I don't want to be burning that with the iron. And we've got, these have got to be lifted up, they're just sat in there, but they need to be lifted off the board before they're soldered. We've got, that's for the bias there, and then these again need to be lifted up before they're soldered, because we don't want those leaning on the board. They were before, but we don't want those on the board, so they'll be lifted there. And the other thing is, now I've got to incorporate this HT fuse. So I'm going to mount it there, because we're not having that resistor on there now. We're actually having that resistor there because that's just it's got so hot, it's just destroying this board. And in actual fact, if we look at this eyelet here, we just hold it, just move that wire so you can see it. If we look at this eyelet, you can see it moving around because it's just baked it, and it's now loose in the board. So we can't use that eyelet anymore, not safely really. We could, I suppose, but it certainly, and it's certainly not burnt through, but it's, yeah, it's pretty sorry, moving camera then, you see that. So it's pretty damaged, that is, from there. And that the thing is, that resistor gets so hot, basically the legs are just like two soldering irons. They're just loosening the solder, and so you can see what that's done to that. So mounting that there, taking some wires to it, mounting that there makes more sense. It's it's a 50-watt resistor, so it's way above what we need. We mount it to the chassis, it'll dissipate the heat through the chassis, and hopefully that should end the problems with that. It's not ideal way of doing it, but you know, short of me delving in and trying to create another DC feed somewhere further down the line, bring it down to 20 volts, and then when I've done that, you know, they've done that for a reason, and maybe because it causes interference, I don't know, or maybe they just did that and it's a bad design, but either way we're going to go with it because that's how it was. So that's what we're going to do with that. So we're going to keep working my way across. As I say, the carbon we've kind of got it all off. Like I say, it's made a bit of a mess of that board, but we couldn't leave that on. It really is, you know, asking for trouble leaving a coating of carbon to that degree on this board. So we've got rid of that. I've removed some of these wires, ready to take it out. They're all laid across. Mr. Laycross there, he's been, so as usual, but we shall sort that out. And as you can see, he's also been across here, made a right shit mess here, so we're going to clean all that up and do that properly as well. It really does annoy me when people do that, you know, and I'm not saying the guy that did it before has obviously fixed it, but it's like, just put it back to how it was. Why bodge it up like that? But they do. They just can't be bothered to do it right. And if you're not doing it right, don't do it at all. So we've got this board up, looking underneath, and you can see where I put my components through, which I've got to snip all these and then resolder these. So one problem we've got is that I've had to take this capacitor out here because it goes over the actual fixing bolt there for the that fixes into the chassis. So that's a bit of a design flaw, but we shall get around it. So it's quite dusty under here, and if we look on the chassis itself, you can see where that resistor is, the previous resistor it had in has let go. So all that, I think we'll just clean that up a bit as well. So we've got all these fixing hook-up wires underneath here, and I need to remove one of them at least, because I need to put that HT fuse in. So that's, I've got to figure that, I think it's that one that we need to lose, and then we'll wire that back up on top with the fuse. But board looks reasonable. Just needs to dust down. It's got a coating of dust on. A couple of capacitors hiding away under here as well. That wouldn't have known those were there if we hadn't have took the board up. Not sure what they're doing. Maybe something on the EQ on the tone network. Don't know. So there we have it. So I shall make a start of cleaning that up. So this wire that you can see here, and that eyelet, which is the loose eyelet that I was showing you at the top, you can actually see that now. It's just completely burnt away all around that, so it's now loose, and you can see the wires a bit burnt there. That wire goes all the way down here, and we can trace it through, and that goes all the way down to that first transistor there. So we need to alter that, because we're putting that on we're mounting that resistor now on the chassis. We can't mount it there because that's shot to ribbons. So, and I can't, I don't really want it on the chassis. So we've got to do something with that as well. So we need to remove that wire and put in something else, another piece of wire that's going to reach from that point that we've just gone back to there, because that's shot. Right, I've got the board back down. It's not fully fastened. We fastened that bolt there because we can't get that capacitor in, otherwise a bit of a pain. So electrolytics replaced, diodes replaced, they're connected back up on AC. New resistor for the bias there, drop-in resistor 180k, which is the original one. Still may end up having to swap that when we start doing this bias set out. New diode for the bias, is a bit overkill, but it while I got them out in the same bag, just stuff one of those in. And the main thing is we've put this fuse, this HT fuse coming from the diodes to the capacitors, and then that's fed through the choke onto this side, and then that's drops. You've got the next power node there dropping from that 22k, then we've got 47k, and then we've got another node there. So that's the next part to sort out. Is getting those two nudes in there. Now I've got these two wires, which you can see here, boing. These are for that big resistor, which we obviously can't mount on this board anymore because the eyelet's shot, and we don't really want that thing baking away on there with the legs acting like a soldering iron and just continuously disconnecting itself. Well, I'm done with that resistor. I had it a minute ago. Just having a brevet round, but yeah, oh, there it is. Ka-ching. So that I am going to mount there on the board. And I'm going to connect that up there, and that will that's a 50 watt resistor. Here we've got a 10 watt in here, and it will baking. So we've got a 50 watt resistor in there. It's overkill, but it'll do the job perfectly. We'll wire that up. We'll clean this here, smidgen of heatsink paste, connect that, bolt that down and connect it up. That job should be a squirrel on that one. So, and then we're going to move over, once we've got these power nodes, we're going to move over onto this bias section here, and what we really need on there, we need a trim pot. So not quite sure I'm going to approach that yet. We need a trim pot there. I've seen one of these done online, and you've got the AC feed coming in, and then they'd got a trim pot and then the resistor. As it works okay. I don't know whether I'm happy with that. Right, I've got the other caps in. Drop-in resistor. Just put that wire off of that. Drop-in resistor 22k. That was 1 watt. It's now 3 watt. And it's metal oxide. Didn't have a metal oxide for that, so we've got 2 watt metal film, 47k drop-in resistor. We've got the caps in, and they've been silicon down. That is pretty much that part of the power supply finished. I've got a fuse there that we've added in, so we've got this resistor still to do, which I've cleaned the base there, so we've got him to fix and wire up. And now I've got to go across here, and if we look, you can see, and then there, and then there, all this really crappy soldering and wires laid across, where Mr. Laycross has paid us this amplifier a visit at some point. So now I've got to go right across there and tidy all that up, because I ain't leaving that. Somebody will think I've done it. It's shit. So, and then I've got the wires to put in on the other side as well. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to knock this off for part 1. That's the power supply built. So in part 2, I'm going to do that work I've just said there, and then we're going to sort the bias circuit out, which is here. There's another capacitor down the line there. That's for the last stage of the EC63 on the end there, 12X7, so that's sorted out. And then there's a couple of caps here, these 68Ks, which I've actually 68 microfarad, and I've actually got some 68 microfarad caps there to go in there, and then there's a couple of electrolytics there, and one there, and there is another one somewhere there hiding there under there where I've left that cap, another one there. So there's those to change, and then just check through all of the resistors. I've just checked these two grid stoppers for the output valves, and they work fine. They test fine, sorry, and the 220Ks are okay as well there, so we'll leave those. Yeah, these screen resistors are a little botched up, so I might just go and solder over those again, but they're good enough to do the job. They've just been poorly soldered again. Dreadful work. So that is that. I think that's basically what we're going to be doing, and then we're going to wire all this up. So I'll rip this. I don't know where that's gone now, but we took, there was a, there it is, there's a module that had been added into there, which was this contraption. Not quite sure what they were doing with that. It's got some kind of attenuator pot, and that was actually inside the amp. So I've removed that, and we're going to put it back to original. So that's gonna, I think it's just about attacking that wire on there, back on there, putting it back on the pot properly, and that should be fine. There's a little bit of work to do here where we've took that off, so there's a bit of stuff to wire back up there, but nothing major on that. And then when we've done all that, should be ready for a fire up. There's also some more handiwork that's been done here. I'm not quite sure what so you can see previous people have worked on this amp and have been around it, and they've left it in a bit of a mess. So that's what we're going to be doing in part 2, but thanks for watching part 1. I hope you've enjoyed that, watching me sort this amplifier out, which is in a bit of a state, and I'll see you all in part 2. You all take care, bye.